What non-state actors do you consider most relevant in the global health context? How do you plan to relate to non-state actors such as NGOs, private entities, foundations, financial institutions, and the like? Are you satisfied with the way that WHO is currently relating to these actors?
Thank you for that important question. And of course, this is something very close to my heart. As you know, I come from a civil society background, in addition to my public sector role and the ministerial role and my multilateral roles and the fact that I'm a medical doctor and have a background in research. I have a long-standing base in both the domestic and international civil society. In terms of non-state actors in the WHO's context, the new framework of engagement with non-state actors classifies them into 4 groups. So there are civil society organizations, the private sector, it is academic institutions, and philanthropic organizations. You have to realize that even the civil society is not monolithic. It is very diverse, and its unique advantage, its capacity, its relevance is very relative to the local context. And I'll give you examples. For instance, in some settings, civil society can play a very important advocacy role. In some settings, they can play a very important niche technical role. In other areas, they are empowered, have independent funding, and can be very important allies in independent monitoring and accountability. Yet in other cases, civil society actors are the actors on ground to deliver services. And there are many countries where the health systems models are such that they are primarily relying on the civil society entities to deliver services, whether it is running existing state institutions or whether it is being contracted out by the government to deliver services. And in all these settings, harnessing the potential of the civil society and harnessing their outreach and their entrepreneurial talent and their capacity and their technical niche roles requires the ability of governments to do that. It requires a very different paradigm compared to the era when governments used to think they are both financing and providing services. If they're going to harness the potential of the civil society actors in environments where they're pervasive, then it requires new regulatory thinking. Also, there are a number of different international civil society agencies which play a hugely important role in cases of emergencies and in humanitarian crises. And I think that within the overall context of my vision, I have clearly presented that WHO will focus on its core mandates, and it will try to lead by building partnerships and leveraging comparative advantage and harnessing the potential of others. So in terms of the last stem of the question, no, I'm not satisfied with the way WHO is currently relating to those actors, but I have to give them credit for having negotiated FENSA, which was a difficult agreement, and I must give credit to Argentina and South America for leading that. FENSA provides the framework for engaging civil society with the right safeguards, with the right conflict of interest safeguards, and I think that we need to move ahead with it. But there is also the private sector, which plays a very important role in the implementation of public policies. The private sector does not and should not have a role at the table when policy is being formulated. But when policy is being implemented, whether it is reducing salt or advertising curbs or reformulation, or they have to be part of the equation. And I would like to say with great humility that with my civil society background, this paradigm shift in WHO, I will be able to shepherd much better. When I was the co-chair of the WHO Commission on Ending Childhood Obesity, which arguably was one of the most difficult commissions in WHO history, I had, in humility, I would like to say, I was the one who brought the NGOs and the private sector to a common position and produced something that is now being implemented in various parts of the world.
Thank you, Doctor. I would ask Dr. Tedros to continue.
Okay, thank you very much. With regard to FENSA and the first question, I think it's many questions in one. The state actors that are most relevant in the global health context. We should value actually the importance or the contribution of actors based on what they concretely contribute to a health outcome. And that can be actually done if we build effective partnerships first. Effective partnerships that are not just meeting to talk or just a talk shop, but to agree on concrete goals and to design on how to get there, the goals and means, and share responsibilities and move toward this goal. Then you can see who is contributing what to achieve the goal, and the relevance of each partner in that partnership will be based or will be measured based on its contribution. If we can form partnerships like this based on goals, accountability, and something that we can measure to see the contribution, I think that's how we can identify those who can contribute. But this question has another angle also. I think the FENSA has challenges and opportunities. Opportunities based on this goal we said, they may bring something into the table. Challenges, there could be a conflict of interest that could damage especially the normative functions of WHO. So striking a balance on that is very important. To benefit from the partnership, but at the same time, protect the normative functions, strongly protect. And in addition to that, the voice of the member states should be heard. Because at the end of the day, WHO belongs to member states, and everybody knows this. And this is very crucial to understand it, and it relates actually to the normative functions which I said initially. But if we can handle it this way, we can address the conflict of interest, at the same time benefit from those organizations to achieve a goal. But at the end of the day, any partnership should be goal-based and should be measured, but at the same time avoid the conflicts of interest that can be created. So WHO should be very, very strong in order to make this happen, to have a very transparent process that's very, very transparent to the member states that WHO belongs to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros. Dr. Nabarro.
Thank you very much. Which non-state actors are the most relevant in the global health context? Answer, people. People everywhere. My vision of health is that more and more those of us who are working for health should be able to empower people to be able to make choices that will lead them to achieving their full potential. Man or woman, young or old, rich or poor, whatever your sexual preference, and most importantly, wherever you live. And so, for me, this question is about how to make sure that people everywhere are better engaged in debates and in action around ways in which they can be healthy. And in order to do that, I've always believed, ever since I spent my first 10 years working for non-governmental organizations, that actually the organizations that enable people to come together, sometimes through religion, sometimes through politics, sometimes through labor, sometimes through a shared belief, that these organizations need to be enabled to participate in action around health. I think it was really in early HIV work that we saw this really take off. I remember seeing WHO being taken to task for its statist approach to HIV and for not creating enough space for civil society groups to be able to participate. It was a very torrid time in the late 1990s. And I think we're moving forward. I think there is much more scope. I think many of you as health ministers and senior actors in the health sector have found ways to engage people and civil society much more in health action but we've got to do much more. So, no, I'm not satisfied, because I think until people are fully engaged in all aspects of health action, it'll never be right. It'll never be what we want to achieve. And so how do I plan to relate to non-state actors? Well, here I think there is a very special thing about WHO. It is the only legitimate body in the world to set standards for health and to monitor the realization of those standards. And that's a very precious, precious position to be in. So I do want to protect that standard setting function, but I want to go further. Let me take the example of diabetes. This is a terrible epidemic, having awful consequences for millions of people, and it will get worse, with 20% adult prevalence in some countries. I want to see a real movement of action among people and among civil society, among foundations and private entities, to make sure that WHO's standard setting on how to deal with diabetes properly catalyzes actions by partners everywhere to prevent the diabetes happening in the first place, to promote health in ways that avoid particularly type 2 diabetes.
Thank you, Doctor.
And achieving a huge impact. Thank you.